welcome to Shop Talk with Jim and Ken, episode number 6. I'm Jim.
I'm Ken.
Hey, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. Got a couple more topics to talk to you about today. I'm going to cover VLAN setup and configuration in the radio. And what do you have for us, Ken?
Yeah, Jim, thank you. Today I want to talk a little bit about the 80 gigahertz band, or what we might call E-band, as it relates to licensing. And this is a topic specific to FCC. Now, different countries may have similar systems in place, but this is really just for United States customers. Apologies for that, but basically trying to cover one particular topic. Some of you might be familiar with what we might call traditional licensed band radios. When we talk about licensed band radios to most of our customers, we're talking about 6 gigahertz, lower or upper 6 gigahertz, 11, 18, or 23. Those are kind of the popular bands, Part 101 bands for licensing. And for those radios, if you're going to plan to put those radios up, you have to work with a FCC coordinator, someone who does some analysis to determine if your radio is going to interfere with other operators on those frequencies nearby you, and make sure that those other operators aren't interfering with you. So it's a fairly complex process of determining which frequencies to use with the radio you've chosen, the antennas you've chosen, the locations and heights that you've chosen, all those things to define a frequency pair and power levels that are not going to disturb someone else and someone else won't disturb you. So they go through that process, and you pay a fee for that coordination to the coordinator. And then in addition to that, those get submitted to approval for FCC licensing. It goes through a process where other licensees check out what you're doing, make sure it's okay with them, make sure they don't have any complaints, and then you pay a fee to the FCC to license your radios. That's the traditional licensing. With 80 gigahertz, it's different. The way the FCC set this up, and when I say 80 gigahertz, I really mean E-band. It's the frequencies between 70 and roughly 90. There's two specific segments of frequencies there. We'll just refer to them as 80 gigahertz or E-band. For these radios here in the United States, what is required is that you have to have an operator's license, a national operator's license for 80 gigahertz. The way you do this is you go on the FCC website and you obtain a national operator's license. You only need to do this one time, and there's some fees involved with that. It's several $100s. I think it's under $1,000 or so, maybe a couple of hours work on a website, and you get your national operator's license. Once you have that operator's license, then you can register or lightly license these 80 gigahertz links one at a time. So when you go to put a link in place, you go up to a website from a coordinator. There's a few different coordinators that offer this service. You go on their website, you put in the coordinates and height, same kind of thing you would do for a normal licensed radio, except that you instantaneously receive feedback as to whether or not that link can be registered. It does a quick little mathematical analysis with all the other existing 80 gigahertz links that are nearby, make sure there isn't any interference. And if it's good to go, you get a green light. You pay a one-time fee, I believe it's $75, to license that link under that registration process. And then you can be up and running. So this is something you can do rather instantly. If you have your own national operator's license, if you want to put up another link this afternoon, you can go to the website, do that registration, and have your link up and running in a couple of hours. You don't have to wait. You just have to pay that one-time fee for $75. That gives you 10 years operating on that particular license. So you're good to go. Some customers, maybe they're only going to do one E-band link, or maybe your time is more valuable than your money. If that's the case, you could potentially lean on someone else's national operator's license. Maybe you've got a friend that has one, and in that case, you could give them $75 and have them do the work, or borrow their national operator's license, or whatever that looks like. Aviat has their own national operator's license for E-band, and you could register under ours. But the way we're doing that is we're doing that through basically an outside agency, an administrator, so to speak, who will do that work for you. Now, of course, their work doesn't come for free, so they pay you pay them a small fee to do that registration process. So they'll pay your $75 fee for you, and they'll do all the work for you, but they're going to charge you a couple $100 to get that done. So the way it kind of works out is, if you're going to do 3 or 4 of these links over time, if you want to reduce your cost, then it'd be best for you to spend the time to get that national operator's license, pay that one-time fee, and then it's a DIY $75 at a time from that point forward. If you're only going to do one of these or two of these, maybe you want to give me a call and I can connect you to that administrator. They can do the work for you. Instead of paying $75, it's going to be about $300 or so to do those links, but then it just gets done and it's out of your way. So it's just kind of a measure of whether or not you're doing that short term or long term. But that's the overall picture of how the 80 band links are registered or licensed, a very different process than the traditional Part 101 licensing radios. We'll come back to some other related topics on a later episode, but that's what I wanted to cover for today.
Okay, well, thanks, Ken, for sharing that information. Really useful pointers on how the licensing works for that 80 gigahertz band. So what I've got to talk about is VLAN configuration and management of that. So I'm going to toggle over to my laptop screen here. Okay, I've logged into my WTM radio and I've navigated to the VLAN management page, and there's two parts that we have to do. First is the definitions. So here in the definitions page, by default, there's only a single VLAN assigned to the radio, VLAN 1, and this is where our management interface appears. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press add, and I can add additional VLANs here. You know, as you add these, they don't have to be contiguous numbers. I could say VLAN 100, and then I'll add another one, make this 101, add another one, make this one 102, and so forth. So if I have a block of VLAN IDs, I can enter those in here. So maybe I want to make our VLAN 102 our high priority traffic. And I can simply put a label in here. We know 1 is our management. And once I've set these up, I'll press commit to save these. So the first step is to define the VLAN ID numbers. Then the second step will be come to the membership page, and this is where you assign the VLANs to the different interfaces on the radio. What's nice about the management of the membership is that we get a nice graphical interface at the top of the page that shows me which VLANs are assigned to what interfaces on the radio. Now you'll notice that by default everything is bridged together, so VLAN 1 appears on all interfaces. They're also bridged up to the radio interface and sent over the air to the far end. Now I can come in here, and let's say I wanted to put my high priority traffic maybe on my 10 gig interface. What I'll do is I will set this 10 gig interface as a trunk port instead of an access port. Access is for untagged traffic, and I had VLAN 102 set up as my high priority traffic, so we'll define that here. Maybe on our 10 gig 1/1 we're going to put some other type of traffic on here. Maybe that will be VLAN 100 will go on there, another VLAN ID. So what we can do now is you can see that we've lost our connection between the other ports up here. What we're going to do is we're going to add this to the radio interface. So I can say VLAN 100. And as soon as I click on that, you'll notice that this first 10 gig port is now bridged up to the radio. So that traffic will also flow over to the radio and then over to the other side of the link. Now we can continue to define these by putting commas between them, or if I have a continuous block of VLANs, I can put in that whole range of numbers, so from 100 to 102 in my case, but if you had 20 VLANs assigned that were all in a contiguous block, you could put that range in there, or you can define them individually with a comma separating them between. Okay, once we've got that set up here, you'll notice that our tree is shown up. We've got some colored VLANs, so if I hover over any one of my VLANs, what it does is it isolates those VLANs from the map and kind of grays out the rest, so it allows me to quickly identify and see which ports are assigned to what VLAN. So it makes it really easy to come through here. I can see my untagged traffic will come off my 2 copper gigabit ports. So as I hover over here, it just kind of isolates the map to be able to quickly see which VLANs have been assigned. So a really nice feature of the radio, being able to hover over and see that. And then being able to define single VLANs with commas, or putting in a range if you have a contiguous block. So that's what I had to show you on the VLAN setup. Really easy to do, visual map. When you're all done, you press the commit button and that will save your configuration. That's it for my tip of the day. Any closing thoughts for you, Ken?
Apparently I was muted. That's awesome stuff, Jim. Thank you so much. I get a lot of questions on this topic, so this is really important. I think we sort of just scratched the surface here, but the point really is that it's a very flexible platform. All of these interfaces can be defined independently or together with different VLAN assignments. It can be a little bit daunting if you've never done that before. I find that graphical tool to be extremely helpful in the process. So thanks for pointing that out.
Sure is. Thanks. Okay, well, thanks for joining us on this edition of Shop Talk. If you like what you see, click on that subscribe button down below, and we'll see you on the next edition of Shop Talk.
Take care, everybody.